And frankly, having a broker involved is not a bad thing. You should have a broker involved.
Right.
They're experts in real estate. They will know things that you don't know, perhaps even things that some lawyers don't know that don't specialize in real estate. But the seller usually pays the broker. I'd be very careful. They do have these forms now for people to sign as a buyer with a broker, a buyer's broker. I'm not so sure I would ever recommend anyone signing that, but if you can work with a broker without that agreement, and if they do find a piece of property for you, they'll get paid by the seller.
Right. And it's what David says is correct. I mean, in a normal scenario, the broker's working for the seller, but on the other hand, the broker wants the deal to go through, and they want a satisfied customer in the future. So, I mean, I think that there's a certain trustworthiness that you have with a broker, but it's not such a bad idea to have a buyer's broker, but then you're responsible for paying a fee.
And if you end up buying another piece of property, there may be some legal issues about owing them money, even if they didn't show that property to you. I would be very cautious about ever signing a brokerage agreement as the buyer. Hire a broker, let him work with you,
Good advice.
But don't sign that agreement.
Right.
Without challenging the value of having a lawyer, if I'm assuming that I'm living in Rhode Island and I feel pretty comfortable about using a lawyer in Rhode Island or nearby Mass, what happens if I'm looking to buy a piece of property in California? We hear and read that there are wonderful values there. Does it matter whether you have a lawyer that's from Rhode Island or from California? What's the difference?
A lot of people from Rhode Island go to Florida.
Yes. How about that? What is that scenario?
I don't know. What do you think, David?
I would get a local attorney.
I think you need a local attorney in California.
In
Exactly.
California.
Where you're buying the real estate.
And sometimes your lawyer here can get you to somebody there who they've worked with in the past, but I think it's best to have somebody local.
Real estate law does vary from
Yes.
state to state. It's very bad for the attorney and for the client to try to do something that's not what they do.
Okay, how about online? Everyone looks for everything online. What can you tell us about the hazards or how to avoid the hazards of working with either purchasing real estate that way or even finding a lawyer that way?
Well, finding a lawyer that way, I think, is not such a bad thing. I mean, lawyers advertise all the time online,
Yes.
and there are all kinds of search engines to find them. I don't have a problem with doing that. You still get to talk to the attorney, interview them yourself, meet with them if you'd like. Buying real estate online, I think, is a whole other story. I mean, I wouldn't suggest it. But
Here's the deal, I think. Online today's online is yesterday's yellow pages. You know, could you hire an attorney out of the yellow pages 10 years ago? Sure. What I would always recommend is get a list of them. If that's where you find them, speak to them, make sure you're comfortable with them. The most important thing to me in hiring an attorney is to make sure you're comfortable with who you hired. Can you talk to them easily enough? Do you understand what they're saying? Are you on the same page? That's the most important thing. So finding them through using an online service or something, fine. Real estate, the same thing. What Nancy's saying is no one should ever buy a piece of real estate by looking at it online without going to see it. So you can do your research. If you want to buy something in California, go online and see what you can find. Before you buy it, go out and see it.
Sounds like good advice. And considering you are lawyers, what does it cost for someone to hire a lawyer to handle that real estate process and transaction? What's the range?
Where are you hiring us? What stage? You know, if it's to...
Explore it, David.
All right,
Good.
let's suppose we start with they've already signed their purchase and sales agreement, which most people have done before they hired the lawyer. Now what they need is someone to do the title work, the closing, that type of thing. Those fees vary by the cost of the real estate. And the reason is most banks, if you're using a bank to get financing, require title insurance. And title insurance is based on how much you're insuring. So the fees can range from, well, I can't give you a fee range on title insurance because I don't know how much we're selling or buying the property for.
$200,000.
$200,000, good number. They could be as low as, I'd say, $1,500 to as much as $4,500.
Okay.
Depending on what type of work is getting done within that process.
Okay, and then if you were involved from pre-sales agreement.
Right. Most attorneys who do nothing but real estate will work with you sort of as a one fee covers all things. If you go to an attorney just for a purchase and sales agreement, I'd see attorneys, depending on how much negotiation
Right.
they're doing, do it between $250 and $750.
I think some attorneys also charge for the whole process by a percentage of what
Right.
the real estate costs.
Right.
Which, you know, makes a certain amount of sense, because theoretically the higher the price of the real estate, the more negotiating and work
Right.
there is to do. That's how some people do it.
So it could be hourly, it could be
Right.
based on a flat fee, depending on how much work is going to be done. But definitely the title insurance is going to be based on what the premium cost.
Would you be likely, when I talked to you earlier about perhaps negotiating, when there's auction, that means bidding wars, I'm thinking that the longer I'm in a bidding war, the more I'm paying for it, and the less happy I'm going to be, or less likely I'm going to get a good investment. Are you likely to participate in an auction for someone?
Sure, attorneys go to foreclosures all the time for clients. And there's another interesting thing too. When you go, you got to look around and see what else you see there, because if there's a tenant in the real estate, you know, the owner,
Right.
who is not getting out after their foreclosure, you're going to have the responsibility to evict them.
Who's the you? You
The
or?
person who buys the property.
Yes, oh, okay.
You, the person who's hired the attorney to go to the foreclosure auction for you. If you buy the property from the bank, there still could be a tenant in there, so the attorneys are going to be negotiating who's paying to get the tenant out of the real estate.
Why would you have to pay to get them out if they haven't been paying their mortgage? And
They won't leave. I mean, just people simply don't have a place to go and won't leave.
You sound a little bit like the client who spoke to an old, long-time Rhode Island attorney, and the story he told was something like this. Young attorney just passed the bar. He knew this fellow for years and years and years. He grew up next to him, and he said, comes to him, he says, "I want you to throw the tenant out of the real estate that I own." And he says, "Well, I can, but we've got to go to court to do that." "What do you go to court? You're an attorney. You go, you throw him out." So they go to court. He puts him on the stand. He swears him in. And the first question the lawyer asks is, "What's your name?" And the client looks at the judge and says, "What kind of kid is this? I grew up next to him. He's known me all his life. He doesn't even know my name." So you have to go to court to throw someone out of real estate.
Okay, good advice. As we think about the idea of getting access to cash right now, theoretically we're supposed to be able to have access to cash thanks to all of the bailout. You mentioned quickly, and I hope you can cover this quickly, if I can't get access to cash, although I thought I was going to, and it looked as though I was going to, what was it that you said we need to do to make sure that we can get out of that deal without losing that deposit?
The mortgage contingency or the financing contingency that you would have in your purchase and sale. It's critical.
Okay.
Really critical.
So I would say we've covered some of the things about pre and foreclosure and auction, and next week we're going to be looking at short sale. We'd like to thank David and Nancy for giving us this bit of insight. I hope that you'll stay tuned, and in the meantime, when you have questions about foreclosure or auctions or how you work with lawyers, I hope that you will plan on giving us some sort of question for next week. And there is a new email, which is legalmatters@fullchannel.net. Hopefully we're all better prepared and more aware of what's going on, and stay tuned, because the next discussion of legal matters will be continuing, and I hope that you'll be joining us.